It's been almost 10 years since the World Trade Center attacks. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost that tragic September day. And since then, about 1,000 of the men and women who spent countless hours working at Ground Zero over the days, weeks, and months following the attacks have died, all a result of developing health problems from breathing in mountains of debris. Long Beach Fire Department Chief Richard Corbett experienced the loss of colleague Billy Quick this past January. Billy was a 9/11 first responder that developed lung disease. They were friends for more than 20 years.
He was in such amazing shape, and as after 9/11, when his kidneys, a couple of years, his kidneys started to fail, and you saw like the fluid was being retained in his body, and he started having shortness of breath because of his lungs. He was the ultimate giver. He always wanted people around, and to see something like this happen to a man like that, it's devastating.
Since the 9/11 attacks, Dr. Benjamin Luft has been conducting research on the health impacts working at Ground Zero had on Long Island first responders. Dr. Luft is the director of the Long Island World Trade Center Medical Monitoring and Treatment Program, a federally funded program that monitors more than 5,000 of these men and women. It's one of several similar treatment facilities in the tri-state area.
The type of exposure that these responders underwent was really very complex. There was this total pulverization of these structures with a tremendous release of dust and materials into the air. We began to see a variety of respiratory problems, and at the same time there was a tremendous amount of psychic trauma.
Center Reach resident Glenn Klein, who uses Dr. Luft's program, is a former NYPD Emergency Services Unit officer that still suffers with both mental and physical health problems directly related to his time at Ground Zero. He spent close to 800 hours there.
They found that I have GERD, pretty bad GERD, reflux disease, a hiatal hernia, pockets of diverticuli. I've also been diagnosed as having exercise-induced asthma. I have scarring on one of my lungs. I have nodules on the other. The gastrointestinal problems, the post-traumatic stress.
Before 9/11, according to Klein's doctors, his NYPD annual required physicals showed he was in perfect health.
I was very healthy. I always exercised. I always took really good care of myself. I always took pride in how I looked. And in 2003 is when I started falling apart.
As the 10th anniversary of the World Trade Center attacks rapidly approaches, you may be wondering what's next in terms of research and treatment for the first responders lucky enough to still be living even with the health issues that they face. For Dr. Luft, his time will be spent focusing on a few key areas.
How do we deal with a lot of the psychic injury that continues to plague these people? How about, and the respiratory disease that causes a tremendous amount of dysfunction? So there are two parts. One is what began a long time ago and how do we improve that? And two, what's going to happen next?
For Klein, he just hopes his health doesn't get any worse than it already is.
Now, if I can stay as healthy as I am right now, I'll be happy about that. I'll accept that. I've seen too many other friends of mine, too many other people who actually spent a lot less time down at Ground Zero than I did, who have cancer, and even some that have already passed away. So, you know, I wake up every morning, even though I have all these ailments, I consider myself extremely lucky compared to a lot of people that I know.
And thanks to the recently passed Zadroga Act, first responders will have their medical expenses covered for the next 5 years. For Stony Brook University, I'm Matt Hammer.